Шановні друзі, доброго.
Dear friends, good day. I'm sincerely happy to welcome all of you at one more Innovation Day, which has been organized by European Business Association. And it seems to me, that this is really so trendy to be in the innovations, because it seems to me that every day, whether we want it or not, we are becoming some innovators to some extent. So that is why today I do hope that we'll have a very interesting conversation about how and what now innovation is, and how we need to use innovation approaches, which they could be, which recipes of innovations we can use in our businesses, and lots of other interesting things. So I would offer all of us to open our ears and let us write in our brains, into our minds and subconscious, what we can use in our daily life and also in the life of business which we can have as of today. So I would like to express gratitude to all of our partners, without which this event wouldn't be that bright. This is the Embassy of the Netherlands to Ukraine. We thank you that you are supporting our wishes to have innovation development and sustainable development. And it seems to me together we can bring more new ideas to Ukraine. And also I thank Imperial Brands and Darnitzer Company that we are also moving forward towards the innovation approaches and innovations as they are. So, dear friends, I welcome our first guest. I would even say our best friend, our Professor Dr. Louise Fresco. She's very famous in the Netherlands, and she's the person who's written lots of books. She's a scientist. So I do hope it will be interesting to hear her information, how the food of the future and the agriculture of the future should like, which innovative approaches we can use in this sphere. Louise?
Welcome you here. I know that you are a very well-known scholar in the Netherlands. You're a member of University of Wageningen University, a member of the Royal Academy of Science. So basically, you're very well established in your country, and you are author also of the book "Paradise Hamburgers in Paradise." How the future of agriculture should look like, especially because we are in Ukraine and this is it used to be the breadbasket of Europe. So what is your viewpoint on the innovative ways in this area?
Thank you very much, Anna, and good morning to all of you. It's a great honor and pleasure to be with you here. Indeed, Ukraine is and was the breadbasket of the world. It's a very, very important country from an agriculture and food perspective. And that is, of course, partly due to the good businessmen you have, but also to the fact that you are blessed with some of the best soils in the world. As you know, the Chernozyms remain, the top in the world. However, of course, there are really some challenges that we all need to look at. And I think the challenge is to define the pathways between now and, say, 2050 in terms of what investments need to be made in Ukrainian agriculture and how to face the challenges of the world. Now, the challenges are multiple. Ukraine will remain and should remain one of the really food exporting countries of the world. That's really essential to food security in the world. And I want to emphasize this because sometimes people feel that exporting food is not necessary anymore, but it will be, of course. There still is a need for 80% more food in the course of this coming century. And Ukraine will be one of the countries making sure that that food is available to the poor in the world. So increasing production is still important. Your yields are very good, but they're not as good as they could be. There still is a possibility to raise the yields more by being smarter agricultural engineers and entrepreneurs. Secondly, there is a strong trend in the next few decades to look not just at food production itself, but at the whole food chain. So from production all the way to the consumer. Consumers in the EU, but also elsewhere, will want to know how the food on their markets is being produced. So a tracking and tracing system through new digital means and with new data is going to be very important. Where does the food come from? How was it produced? How authentic is it? And that is something I think where Ukraine can still invest in ensuring consumers everywhere in the world about the quality of the food and the way it is produced. Another challenge is, of course, climate change. Fortunately, some of your soils have a very good possibility of fixing more carbon, so carbon in terms of CO2, because of their special characteristics. We all know that in the overall climate agreements, agriculture has to be part of the solution to the climate problem. It also produces greenhouse gases at the moment, if you look at the whole production chain, but it's also part of the solution. And I think Ukraine may want to think through how its agriculture can be part of the climate equation by fixing more carbon, but also by being more efficient in its production process. A third element related to this is, of course, that there may be more concern about variability in rainfall and climate peaks or weather peaks, I should say, high temperatures in summer, short seasons that are very high and very dry. And I think that that is a special challenge. It's of course one you know very much from the past. Ukrainian yields used to fail from time to time, notwithstanding the good soils, because of the loss of the crop due to water shortage. So looking for plants that are actually resistant to high temperatures and to high or to low rainfall is going to be a real important challenge for the world as a whole, but particularly for Ukraine. And that requires a combination of good agronomy and good genetic properties of the crops. I know you have some good work in biotechnology, in plant breeding, but I think this is still an area where real improvements can be made. How can the crops be as resilient as possible to variations in the weather? Another dimension that I see for the Ukrainian future has to do with even more mechanization, but what we call smart mechanization. So it's obvious that you have already some very, very large farms. Some of the largest farms in Europe actually are in the Ukraine. But we now know that using heavy machinery is not always the best way. And what we call now smart robotics means using machines that can actually really target, for example, the chemicals that you need for the plant really at the square centimeter rather than doing a blanket treatment. And these smart robotics and smart driven mechanical helps are going to be even more important in the future. Particularly, of course, because in the Ukraine, there's still a considerable use of agrochemicals, which, as you know, we want to reduce as much as possible without endangering, of course, the yields. And so getting a balanced system where everything from crop protection to fertilizers to best water use is balanced, we need to really get the best possible data. So I see Ukrainian agriculture, thankfully, because of its size, really moving towards a smart digital agriculture. That's definitely also necessary in other area where Ukraine has a lot of expansion potential, and that is not just in the field crops, the grains, the cereals that we know, but also in horticulture. If you look at the future, the necessity to consume fruits and vegetables is growing all over the world. We now know that from a health perspective, eating fruits and vegetables is going to be really important. And the world production there is far too low. It's also too low in the European Union. And this is a really important dimension where developing the horticultural sector could be an excellent way to move forward. Now, Ukraine will export not just to the EU, but the EU will remain a very important partner. And as you know, the EU has decided to go massively for what they call a Green Deal, so more sustainable agriculture, in which also, for example, organic agriculture plays a role. Apart from the complications for that, I think it's important, again, for Ukraine to document very well how it produces its crops, because the EU will ask more and more to certify what is being produced. So all in all, I think there are a tremendous opportunity to make Ukrainian agriculture even better. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is to share experiences with other countries, not least, of course, the Netherlands. As you know, we have a very strong system of research and development. We at Wageningen work very closely also with the private sector, and we feel very much that there is a great potential to collaborate. And I'm really here to also tell you that we would be very pleased to explore the potential of working together, to exchange staff and students, and to see also on a business level where we can work together. You have some tremendous opportunities that we in a very small, very densely populated country, we do not have. But some of our technology can be really helpful. And I believe firmly in scientific collaboration and also in business collaboration wherever it happens. Now, last but not least, I think one of the things that is important is to draw investment to the modernization of Ukrainian agriculture. And that can only be done when society as a whole understands the importance of agriculture. And now that the number of people working in agriculture is also declining, also in the Ukraine, but everywhere, you need to build a public base for people to understand that agriculture is going to remain the most important sector. And building that communication base is also very important. We have done a lot of that in Wageningen, and we're very happy to work with you. So we stand there to be of support to you, to discover how we can work together. And I would really welcome a visit whenever it's possible again of Ukrainian scientists and business people to Wageningen University and research. Thank you very much, Anna, and I wish you a very, very good and interesting and inspiring meeting.
Thank you so much, Louisa. If you allow it, I will raise a few questions to you, and thank you very much for your interesting and very practical speech, I would say, in such a way. I'm also with you for 100% that collaboration currently is very important, and I would say the cross-collaboration between different areas, between science and business, is getting far more important compared to what it was even a few years ago. But when it comes to your estimation of the current impact of COVID virus to the whole world and to the consumer behaviors, do you see any change in consumer behaviors when it comes to consumption of food? Do you see probably the desire, more appetite for more organic food, or do you see that there is no means for that? What is your observation?
Thank you. That's a very, very interesting and important question. What we know from the COVID-19 pandemic is that definitely nutritional status is a risk factor. So people who do not have healthy diets are more at risk of contracting the disease and really suffering and even dying from the disease. So that has pushed towards more healthy diets. Also, people want to know more what the origin of their food is, what I covered in the beginning. Organic is not in itself a guarantee. And we, from a science point of view, are also quite worried that, for example, doing away with all chemical fertilizer is a really difficult proposition because the yields will go down. But nevertheless, there will be a market for organic food, I think, for some time to come. I think personally that in the long term, say in 10, 15, 20 years, we will take the best elements from the organic practice and from the improved conventional practice with precision agriculture and really try to make the best possible combination of that and produce healthy and sustainable food. But you are right that consumer demands are changing. There's also that shift towards more vegetables and fruits that we see. And there is one important dimension that I didn't have a chance to mention, and that is the role of meat and animal products. We expect at Wageningen definitely a trend towards replacing some of the animal proteins by vegetable proteins. That can be in the form of meat substitutes, possibly also in the long term with what they call laboratory meat, also with some other species, so not the meat from cows that we know now or the dairy products, but there for all kinds of reasons, we feel that we should never do away with the animal sector completely, but we should look at it from a balanced point of view to see where it competes in terms of feed with human food, but also to get the best possible ways of producing, particularly dairy and eggs, because we know that from a health perspective, these two are important. But in the longer term, we expect the consumption of meat per head to decline somewhat. This is not visible today in the trends, but when we talk about 2050, this will be a factor. So all in all, COVID will make us not so much rethink things as well as reinforce trends that were already there.
But when it comes to the meat, recently there is a new fashion to print, so in some way to print meat. So did I get you right that it will not substitute fully the, I would say, nutrition and the full availability of all minerals and proteins which are needed for the health of the person?
Yes, actually in Wageningen, we've done a lot of work on 3D printing of meat from vegetable sources, mainly soybean. That is possible. It's not at all comparable yet to what you would normally be used to. You can actually add all the nutrients and so on, but the big problem is that you have to do a lot of processing. You're actually destroying the structures and then restructuring it. So it's not always a good idea to do it. You have to add a lot of salt, of coloring, of other chemicals to make it look like meat. So probably the best way to go about this is to do what we call partial substitution. So, for example, in sausages and other processed meats, you can actually replace 25-30% of the meat by vegetable sort of, structures, and then the consumer doesn't notice it. But you should never forget that for young children, for women, and especially women who are pregnant or have children to feed, and the elderly, it's not just the proteins, but it's also the iron and all the minerals that are very important. So we expect a move towards a balanced meat consumption. Not every adult needs to eat meat every day, but small quantities of meat, dairy and eggs will remain important for the future to come.
But also, just recently, many nutritiologists, they are saying that lactose application or utility is not healthy. So basically, people are saying, or doctors are saying that it's better to avoid lactose and milk products. Do you believe from the scientific point of view it is a healthy way of diet or not? So it's necessary to apply and to use meat.
These are very complex stories, and there is a lot of difference between what the science shows and what people believe. Of course, everybody is a nutritional expert. We have 7.8 billion experts in the world in that respect. Lactose is a problem for people from Asian descent who may have lacked some of the enzymes with which they can digest lactose. But most people from Caucasian descent don't have that problem. And actually, it's not an irreversible problem. But like all things, it's moderation. The key of all these things, whether it's meat, whether it's eggs, whether it's sugar, whether it's salt, is about the moderation. Don't eat too much. And certainly, it's not the lactose in itself, but the milk still contains so many good things for small children and for the elderly that we should not do away with it.
And let's go back to the innovation itself. Do you feel that the COVID times, they reduce the financial capacity to finance research? Or on the contrary, you feel that the countries invest more into research and innovation, provided that we need new ways of development in order to survive actually the current, actually the pandemic times?
Yes, I think that there is a real interest in business to invest in healthy food and good quality food chains. I think that hasn't changed, and also the research that's necessary, at least in our case, is not suffering from a lack of investment. But my worry is that a lot of enterprises, especially small and medium enterprises, are facing acute shortages of funding right now. And so the application of research may be more endangered than we think. So support programs at the national level are going to be really important to help businesses continue to work. I don't think the problem is with the innovation, but particularly with the application.
Thank you so much, Louise. I think that we need to go on then. Thank you, and I wish you good health. Stay well and healthy. And since you already mentioned some way of collaboration is needed, I know that you collaborate with our next speaker, whom I'd like to. And you have some joint project in agriculture, even what I've heard. So it would be really interesting to get to know his viewpoints and insights. And the next speaker is Dan Rose Garde, who is also a scientist and artist, and this is a very interesting person to look at and to hear, because he is concentrating on how the future cities will look like. And it will be very interesting to get to know Dan's views in terms of how shall we build the cities, how shall we reshape ourselves in order to be built in the proper setup in the cities. And while Dan is switching on to our Live Air, I would like to say that actually even ourselves are pretty innovative, because everywhere we need to use different methods. Every month we need to use different methods in order to always be with yourselves. And even today, I'm in almost empty hall, preparing the video content for you guys whom I actually don't see. This seems to be a very like regular and usual practice, but it seems to be that it is completely different practice compared to what it was even 1 year or 2 years ago. Do we have Dan with us already, or not yet? No. He is still switching on. I see already the presentation. I know that Dan is actually really inventing something. Hi. Inventing something which is making the city free of COVID. I think that Dan, you will tell us more about that. And I invite you to our conference, to our Innovation Day, and I hope that you will give some light when it comes to the future cities model, how they will be and what shall we expect from the development of the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I hope you can see and hear me well.
Yes, we do.
Super. Yeah. I hope you had a good session with my fellow Dutch colleague Louise just now, and I want to continue that conversation. If we cannot imagine a better future, we will also not be able to create it, right? So we first have to wonder, to dream, to think, to question, and only then we can construct, we can engineer, we can realize it. And so I want to talk about that importance of creativity, that importance of future thinking, and give you some very concrete examples how design can meet science and science can meet design to improve life. Basically, this is why I started the studio where I'm right now in Rotterdam, what you see here. It's an old glass factory built in 1937, which we completely renovated it. So this is the Dream Factory, a team of designers, engineers, project managers, experts, I always make sure that I'm surrounded by people who are smarter than me. That sort of really works well. And so you have big ideas, you put them in a room, and you make them happen. And so I'm the son of a math teacher, of a science teacher. So technology has always been a great tool to make ideas, to make dreams come true, right? So we ask ourselves question. We had some really good conversation actually in Ukraine, in Kiev, with DTech and the innovation center they've started. That was really fascinating. So this was one of the questions, of the many questions we ask ourselves. I don't know how many of you have ever been on the top of a windmill, but the view is amazing. So how can we feel the beauty of wind energy? Can we sort of make a room, like a bubble, like a meeting space or a hotel, so that you can actually embrace these windmills that feed us, that give us energy in a more. This is how project starts, right? So you have a theme, you have a dream, you have a question, and then you start to give an answer. So I'll talk about some very concrete themes: clean air, clean energy, clean water, and clean space. These are our future values, so to speak. So anything you design, either it's a car or a city or a fashion or food or a company, needs to have those values in its DNA. Otherwise, you're not future-proof. It's very simple. So let's talk about energy, right? That's a big theme, especially in Ukraine, and as our need for power and need for energy is growing, the existing way how we treat it is not working in the way we want to. So we need to come up with new ways. So one day I was inspired by this. You remember these glow-in-the-dark little stars you had on the ceiling when you were a boy or girl? Yes? They charge at daytime, they glow at night. And it's phosphorant, it's a phosphorant material. So 5 years ago, we went back to the lab and trying to make it more durable, more sustainable, more light emitting, because it has no battery, no solar panel, no energy bill. It charges via the sun and glows at night. And we got a request from these guys, the Gogh Foundation, the famous Dutch painter, to celebrate his 125th anniversary. And so we sort of connected the material research and the famous paintings, the Starry Night that you see here. And this is what we made, a bicycle path, which charges at daytime and glows at night. So this is in the area where Van Gogh literally worked and lived, right? He walked and lived in this area in 1883. So this glows at night. It's a public space. You can go there for free, no ticket needed. And for some, it's about clean energy. Others, it's safety. The local entrepreneurs are happy because a lot of people come and they book a hotel room or a restaurant. So that's good for tourism. I hear it sort of becomes a hotspot for teenagers. First go to cinema in the big city nearby, and then you go here and, well, do the things you do on a first date. I don't want to know about that. But it's really interesting how something very practical, lighting, energy, cycling, of course the Dutch have a very strong tradition in cycling, to combine it with poetry and a place of wonder. So the Dutch have this tradition of living with nature, but also fighting with nature, right? So because most of it, where I'm right now as well, we live below sea level, right? So on the left you have the sea, on the right you have Rotterdam, Netherlands, Amsterdam, the other cities. So we live with water, but we fight with water. And because of this ingenious system of windmills, of dikes, of dams, this is the famous Afsluitdijk. It's a dam built by hand in 1932, 32 kilometers. So it's very interesting how technology, design, nature is in the DNA of our landscape, right? If we would have been just very practical, we would have just moved to Germany, right? We just would have moved to the hill. Who lives below sea level, right? But we do, and for more than 1,000 years. So, but because of rising sea level, this famous structure was in need of renovation. So the Dutch government allocated a big renovation program and asked us as a design firm to highlight the iconic value of this famous Zen line in the water, right? And so when I visit the location, I saw this. These are the floodgates, right? So they open and close the walls of water to let the water in or keep it out. If they fail, we all drown in the Netherlands, right? So they're very important. And they are designed by Dirk Rosenberg in 1932, a great grandfather of Rem Koolhaas, maybe another Dutch architect that you know. And he did his job really well, as you can see. They look like temples. But they were in need of renovation, and we wanted to make a statement about light, about energy, about poetry, but realized that existing technology like LEDs or cables or sensors would break down because of the salt and the rain. These are harsh weather environments. And so I realized one night, of course, there's already light already present on this famous highway, which is the light of the cars, right? The headlights. Can we not use that? So that's what we started working on, inspired by the wing of a butterfly, which uses reflection to always create a vivid color. So this is our Minister of Infrastructure, right? Mimicking the headlights of the car. This is 3 years later, 60 floodgates. They are monuments of the government, so we had to treat them with care. Completely renovated, daytime, nighttime, right? So no battery, no cable, no solar panel, no wires. They are reflectors, microprismas. So based on the headlights of the car, they reflect the light, illuminating and sort of revealing the blueprint of the famous historical architecture. But at the same time, it shows you can have a light emitting, no energy landscape. And also when there's no car, there's no light. So there's no light pollution, which was very important for the surrounding animals. So this is a very concrete example of how you can create green energy by upcycling what is already surrounding it. Clean space. 2 years ago, the CEO of Rabobank, which is one of the largest banks in the world involved in food production and agriculture, around 51% of all food production. Somehow they're directly or indirectly involved in it in terms of finance. And they have an artist in residence program. And before they just purchased a sculpture or an artwork, like a painting, and hang it in their lobby. But this time, the CEO, he wanted to do something different. So he came to me and asked, can you work with my team on the future of food and on the future of agriculture and its need for innovation? And I have to confess, I am a city boy, right? I do not know the difference between a carrot and leek when it's in the ground. This is not my expertise. I'm an expert in a lot of things, but not in food. And so the first thing I did was actually, with the team, go and visit the fields that feed us, right? So this is a 20,000 square meter field of leek in the Netherlands, biological leek. And it was so fascinating that we're so disconnected from our food, right? It's packaged, it's in stores and shopping centers. But just to go there and see this vastness of space where the earth is feeding us, where the plants and the crops are feeding us. And we were asking, how can we improve that, right? And so we teamed up with actually Wageningen University, Louise Fresco, that you just heard in the previous talk, a team of experts about agriculture, the farmers themselves, and the Rabobank experts. And the notion of light recipes started kicking in. So this is 10 months later. So what you're seeing here is Grow. Grow highlights the beauty of agriculture, the places that feed us. But the light that you're seeing here is not just beautiful, it's also activating. So as photobiological people know, red and blue light helps to grow crops better, right? To activate them and to address their growth in a sustainable way. And the ultraviolet light, which can be inside it, activates the defense system and can therefore reduce the use of pesticide up to 50%. So it was really interesting to sort of see how different crops react to different light. We as humans react to light, but plants really do even more. And to sort of help them grow and trigger their growth in the right way. So it's a system where we're sort of scanning and projecting the light in a horizontal way to avoid light pollution going upwards. And this is the farmer, Dennis, who just started to stare at his own crops for hours. And this is something which was there for several hours after sunset to, bring some magic in the crop development, and at the same time help to grow crops in a better way. This is now. This is now the movie that you can see online in the photos reached a lot of people, more than, I think, 667, 600, around 700 million people in news, agriculture, design, and innovation. So, sometimes people say, oh, innovation is difficult, or people don't want good news. That's completely not true. There is an audience for innovation, but you don't need to only talk about technology. You also need to connect it to a feeling, to a positive, something that you can share. And right now we're working on a tour. Every country has its own local crop and therefore its own light recipes. So we're focusing on China, for example, the rice fields that you see here, or Australia, the seeds, etc. So these are large-scale exhibitions that we're launching after summer this year, where people can come as a work of art, but also as a platform to speed up science, to improve agriculture. Really fascinating. So am I an expert in light recipes? Well, now I am. But most of all, I was a connector. I put those people in a room and made it into a story which appealed people. I think that's part of innovation, not just technology, but also experience. And the last one, Urban Sun. So we talked about light recipes for people, for crops. This is really interesting. It's inspired by the real sun, which is 148 million kilometers away from us. 148 million kilometers, insanely far away. But it defines our world, right? Day, night. It helps us to grow, keeps us alive. It turns the tides of the sea. And of course, we live all in a world, and even today, that something physically so small as the coronavirus is having such a huge impact on our daily lives, right? Suddenly our world is surrounded by plastic barriers. Our friends are reduced to pixels on a Zoom computer screen. How will our new normal look like? And this was a project we initiated as a design firm, our own time, money, and energy. No client. Now there's client, but 14 months ago there was no client. And it started actually with me reading a science article in Nature, the scientific journal, about this specific far UVC light. So what is far UVC? Well, it's light which kills viruses, but is safe for people and animals. So normal, traditional UV light that you see on the left here kills viruses very well, has been around for 80 years, but is harmful to your skin or your eyes, right? We know that. But scientists in 2018 from Columbia University in New York and also in Japan discovered a very specific wavelength, a shorter wavelength of 222 nanometers, also called far UVC, which cannot penetrate top layer of skin and therefore is considered safe. And I was reading this article and I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And why are we not working with this? Why doesn't anybody know really about this? So we made a team of designers, engineers, experts, virology experts, and we designed 14 months later Urban Sun. So what you're seeing here is a black sphere with that specific UV light underneath, the black circle on the ground. So everything underneath this is sanitized, is being cleaned with the speed of light, 300,000 kilometers per second. Right? So all the viruses in the air in minutes can be to 50, 90, 99.9% cleaned. And this works for all viruses. So the current one, which triggers the COVID-19, but also influenza, the ones that unfortunately we will still encounter in our future world. So Urban Sun is a place where you can meet in a safer and a better way. And we added a visual gold yellow light so you can see where the safer zone begins and ends. Urban Sun is a symbol of hope, to say if we're not architects of our future, we are its victims. It shows the power of combining design and science to improve the world, right? But it's also a very practical solution which can be applied to schoolyards, hospitals, train stations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
300, I'm almost there. 320 Zoom calls with scientists all around the world. And right now we're working on a very large one for places like Expo Dubai, or maybe in Kiev in Ukraine again. Yeah. So if you want to know more, go online to studiorosegarden.net. And I hope I gave you a little bit of inspiration how the power of creativity, how design and science can meet to improve. the importance of it, of investing in new ideas and trying and learning from them. And show the potential and the poetry of that better future.
Wow,
Thank you.
Incredible. It is indeed actually inspiring, and it's interesting to get to know your new technological solutions. And while listening to you, I would like to raise you a question with regards to these lights in the fields. Is it expensive actually to arrange it? Because it looks amazing, but when it comes to the investment point of view, it seems to be quite enormous.
Well, the first one is always the most difficult, right? Because you have to make a prototype, you're going to make a mistake, you're going to learn from it. But once you have it, it becomes much, much easier. So the system is up and running. Of course, the more research, the more better. And I think it really, when you talk about costs, we live in a world where to pollute is for free, right? And that's a problem. So because then new innovations, you have to do something new, but in an old way. So if you look at the price of pesticide, it's like almost nothing. It's like 100, 200 euros for a whole field. So if I have to compete with that, I will always lose, right? But if in the coming 10, 15 years, we will get a real economy where the cost of damage, of pollution, will be included in the ticket of your airplane, the car you drive, and the clothes you buy. And then these innovations will be economically more balanced. Up till then, we need leaders who understand a long-term vision, who have the courage and the understanding that they have to invest in new ideas to survive. And this is not just about making pretty things. This is about survival, about finding a new harmony with the world around us. And if we don't do it, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I hope I gave you an answer. So
as far as I understand, it's expensive, but necessary.
No. It will be more expensive if we're not going to do it.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. But no, I mean, these projects are commissions by cities, by like companies like DTech or city developers, and we're doing projects all around the world. So it's not that expensive. It's still doable. But you're right. You need leaders who are saying, we have a long-term vision and we need to do this. Absolutely. But I think that's why we're having this conference, right? Yeah.
And when it comes to Urban Sun project, I don't know, from the technological point of view, it's indeed actually amazing. But when it comes to the practical point of view, does it mean that in case you kill the viruses, then immune systems of people are getting less strong, I would say, or less exercising, I would say, in such a way? Do you believe that in case actually people are living in this kind of environment, and if they would go to Africa or to India or to other places where the quantity of viruses is much bigger compared to urban sun areas, do you feel that, do you believe that people will be more inclined to be sick or not?
Yeah, no, I understand your question. Well, urban sun, there are international standards for the use of ultraviolet light, including the 2 to 2 nanometer. So there are international safety standards. It is measured and calibrated by the Dutch National Meteorology Institute here. So Urban Sun accords to the international standards, of which the whole scientific community says this is safe, right? So no, I don't think there will be a problem in that. It's really intended for the meeting places, for like schoolyards, train station, hospitals, conferences, where you're not staying weeks or months, but like a day or 5 hours or 1 hour, right? So it's the same like a toothbrush for your teeth, right?
Cool.
You're cleaning your teeth. I'm simplifying my project now, but it's a gigantic sanitizer toothbrush for viruses. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean we don't need vaccine or government rules. We do, but it's an extra assistance. And it's so important that we are curious about the future, right? And that we make proposals and we make new ideas. It seems today we're a bit scared of the future or idle or waiting, right? That happens everywhere. And I think that's a problem. And so I think Urban Sun is a practical solution, but at the same time also an activation of saying, hey, what can we do more in collaborations? So.
But you're right, your designs and your ideas look very practical, and they don't even look, they are practical, and they look very futuristic to a certain extent. Where do you take those ideas? You mentioned already that you're reading Nature magazine. You're also the son of a technology guy, but where else you are getting those ideas? How do you suggest to people be more innovative and be more technological?
Well, that's the beauty of an idea. You don't own an idea. You surrender to an idea. What I mean by that is you wake up in the morning and you have an idea and you're like, oh boy. You're like, because you have to spend a lot of love, time, money, and energy and collaboration to make it happen. So I would encourage you to, sometimes an idea comes from inspiration. Sometimes it comes from frustration, from irritation, from the world around you, and you don't understand or you don't feel connected with it. But I think it's really important that we don't think in just opinions, but in proposals. So I would encourage you to look around the world, be inspired, be irritated, but then ask yourself, hey, but what can I do to make it better? And then you just need to dedicate yourself to it and talk about it. When I have a new idea, it's not a secret. Everybody knows about it. The taxi driver, my grandma, the person who I'm with in the elevator. I just try to tell it, listen to their feedback, and then make it better. So it's like a ping pong. And being in Kiev and sort of getting to know and slightly getting to understand the transition the country is in, and the young generation that the young people that I've met of around 25, 35. I'm 41 now. They are craving for that kind of thinking. So I think it's also creativity, not as decoration, but as activation and as engagement to make people care about their city or their country, right? So that's the power of sustainability. It activates people to be curious about the future. Yeah, that's really important.
Thank you. It seems to me you are making inspiration for many people, including myself. Thank you so much, and I invite you to continue cooperation with our Ukrainian colleagues, so that the number of those nice and crazy but very practical and necessary designs and decisions and solutions would be implemented not only in Netherlands and elsewhere, but also in Ukraine, because we desperately also need very nice and modern solutions in the country. Thank you. And good luck also to you.
I'm really looking forward to that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep well. Друзі, ну що ж,
Dear friends, so we have listened to our Dutch friends. Now we will go on with our panel discussion. We are planning lots of people with their speeches whom you know, and I do hope that in several minutes we will be able to go on with our virtual communication. Thank you.
Здравствуйте всем. Не начинайте. Шановні друзі,
Dear friends, we are going on with our Innovation Day, and as you see, our stage has transformed into an interesting number of people whom I will gladly ask different questions which concern innovations. So I will begin with Dmitro. By the way, we are planning an hour and a quarter of our communication, so dear friends, look at the timing. Dmitro is the head of the supervisory board of Darnitsa company. Darnitsa is perceived as an innovative company, which is moreover is working in the pharmaceutical segment. It can't not be innovative. Yes, in the modern environment, sure. So how do you consider the innovation process from within, because you are an Ukrainian company in any way, and it's not always when you have enough of money and financial resources to move on with this process. How do you manage to be innovative, and how do those innovations concern, for instance, inoculation, vaccination in Ukraine? Oh, I knew that we will be speaking about vaccination, that we will begin with pharmaceuticals, but we will end with vaccination. Taking into account that this is a hot topic and stock market in the world is really powerfully influenced by vaccines and everything which is connected with coronavirus and the pandemic, still I would like to begin with the innovations and the dynamics of the innovation processes which are taking place in the Darnitsa company and with our approaches. If we look today, pharmaceuticals is one of the leader branches with the same level as high-tech companies are, which drive the innovation processes in the world and in Ukraine in particular. So, first of all, challenges, and besides that, the technologies which have been developed. We are speaking about the AI with the data processing, big data, analytics, really technological processes, optimization of quality, everything which concerns smart product production, all of that is in pharmaceuticals today. Now the technologies have achieved the level which allow to automate lots of processes, which means that in this the pace of innovations is speeding up times and times more. And if we're looking at the pharmaceutical industry, we've got lots of things included. The innovations in the R&D, research and development. If we speak about Ukraine, that's the creation of generics, which will be totally correspond with the original products in bioequivalence, the combination medicines, when you don't take 10 pills but only one pill and that's enough, or when you take it once a day, not 3 times a day, and so on. So this is one of the innovation processes which are taking place in the generic pharmaceuticals. Then if we look at the business processes, the optimization of the business processes is the decrease of expenses and the reduction of the price for the end user. That is accessibility. The factor of accessibility and optimization of manufacturing. If we look at the history which happened during COVID in Darnitsa, for us it was important to optimize the manufacturing in security, in continuity, because the challenges of continuity take place. Then we are also facing all of the challenges which other companies see, that is cybersecurity, data processing, quick decision making, optimization, and innovations need to be anywhere, everywhere, in all of the processes. Today, the company which doesn't deal with innovations, it's dead. It's totally dead. It cannot move on. So innovation processes are taking place in all of the departments and structural parts which the company has. But this is an overall opinion. But if we look at the world, where we can see innovations are taking place, yesterday Amazon opened pharmacy. So yesterday in Facebook I made a joke. They just don't vaccinate. They do everything what CVS does. So you can buy socks, you can buy bananas, and you can buy medicine in Amazon without leaving your apartment. And all of that will come just in lots of United States, that is just in 2 hours. Everything began with Amazon to buy a pill pack company which creates precision medicine. That is individual medicine, the creation of precision individual pills. So we can see the development of digitalization and we can see the development of e-commerce. One more interesting sphere is wearables, what we wear, like our smartwatches, different devices and gadgets which collect lots of biodata. And the markers are becoming very interesting Well, they are not becoming bitcoins to be traded, but still, they are moving in the same direction, because these are the data which allow to conduct more efficient clinical research, to make them more rapid, to use artificial intelligence, and so on. One more sphere which is taking place in the industry, well, you asked me to speak about vaccines. What do you think? Maybe you know. How much was spent by Moderna company? How many hours were spent to develop mRNA vaccines? 2 days. 2 days were spent to develop the vaccine. Then they had the processes connected with the testing, clinical research, and so on. But this sequencing, the use of the technologies of sequencing of DNA and RNA, which allowed the scientists to quickly develop the vaccine and then to modify it, which was allowed by FDA, because FDA was moving with the same speed as the industry, and now they can modify it during its use. So if we are speaking about the first version of vaccine and compare it with the version which is now, it differs, and it is correspondent to the mutations of the virus, like it's done in software business. We can issue different pills when the disease is developing and the society is developing. So I just mentioned a very small layer of innovative processes which are taking place in pharmaceutical sphere. But innovations in pharma is not possible without high tech. It is impossible, but there are lots of people from high tech here. I will give them the opportunity to speak. Well, sure, without high tech we can't deal. But if we speak about the innovations in Ukraine and in Darnica, how much money Darnica spends onto the innovational development? Well, we allocate approximately 10% from net sales, which is done for R&D. If we look at the investments, at the innovative processes, we have spent more than 3 million, if we speak about digitalization, 3 million euro. And those are the investments which are done to use modern technologies. If we look at different spheres, for instance, we have the fully robotized automated warehouse with lots of robots with only 4 people. Well, everybody's saying what that warehouse is. Well, it's a 5-storied building with 10,000 pallets. It's fully automated, so this is the integration with the ERP and planning and optimization, which allows us to have a crazy money saving in the long-term perspective and even now. And people, well, yes, as for human error, the efficiency of the use, the storage, the support of the quality of the products. Then we speak about smart production. What smart production is? It's when we have the full analytical manufacturing, which allows to provide predictive maintenance, that is, foreseen service. The efficient approach to the work of the whole equipment, because we have the huge capital investments done by the company annually, that is more than 20 million. Then, dollars, yes, dollars. Then, if we speak about the back office processes, this is a huge data collection, the volume of data, and everything which we can do with the analytical data. Ukrainian is very interesting because pharmaceutical industry in Ukraine has piled up huge volumes of data from the retail to the manufacturers, and this is the huge analytics we can work with. Those are spheres which concern the efficiency, what's named e-dossier or e-document turnover, huge investments. Still in Ukraine, in the company, everything is done electronically. Then we print out 2 cards for 1 medicine. To get a permit for a blister, for a little blister, you need to give 2 cards of documents, printed out documents of paperback documents. And we do hope we'll have an opportunity to do it electronically, please. Of course we'll have that, of course we'll have it. I think that EBA will help us in that. And the Ministry of Digital Transformation will help us in that, sure, because those are the critical factors which are so important. And there are lots of issues as for the interaction of the staff, its optimization, and we are totally looking at the new innovative things which we can implement today in the company. But what can help you to be more innovative? Or is it maximum? No, innovation is the state of mind. We are constantly searching for something new. You can't say, oh, that's it, I am the innovative, I can relax at the couch and enjoy life. No. You have a huge, crazy competition. The new generation is coming and inventing new things. They create it, they emerge. And I look at the startups which are created in Ukraine and in the world, and they constantly are finding new details, new opportunities. I know that Victoria will be speaking about that today. Availability of money is enormous. There's lots of money available. The investments are possible. It's important to have an idea and to be aggressive to implement it. Innovation is the state of your soul, is the wish to create something new. Well, of course, there are lots of people who like some conservative opinions, but it's not about us. And I'm sure that at those panel discussions and the people who are our viewers are also the examples of modern technologies and the new reality. Anna, really, how much would the whole cost if we had 300 people in the audience? I will tell you, honestly speaking, when we compare the virtual reality and the offline, it's a new reality, true. We need to get ready to that. So I think that we are all working for our virtual reality to become cheaper, for it to be accessible for everybody. But those are innovations, yes, definitely. It gives the opportunity and to see certain interactive. So we are moving on there. So this is the new world. Thank you, Dmitro. I'm looking at Victoria, and I would like to involve her in the discussion. Victoria is the founder and the managing partner of TA Ventures company, and I know Victoria as an innovator herself who is totally moving on and pushing forward with some crazy energy, opening new horizons. Victoria, what's your attitude towards innovations? Do you feel the innovations in Ukraine, are they more numerous now or not? Thank you, Anna. Well, a year was very hard. This year we do hope will be the last hard one. We would like still to go outside and to have coffee not only with the speakers but offline with everybody. But in spite of that, in the counter trend, there are interesting figures about the last year. More than 300 billion of venture business investments. The US are the leaders. They have more than 115 unicorns last year. It's a wow. Out of 450. Well, they print dollars. It's easy for them to invest. Well, in our portfolio, we have 6 unicorns which should be approved this year and the next year. And out of 12, we have 1 approved already, and it's only our company. We've invested since 2010 approximately $67 million in the investments of the innovations of Ukraine, Europe, and the world. And we decided to create bigger fund to have at least 25 million to invest as TA Ventures, and the same sum of money, maybe more, together with our global clubs. The appetites are huge. Dmitro was totally right. There's lots of money available, but the question is the origin of the money. Money and money and money again. Those are mega rounds which are now done not only in Europe but in the US. For instance, Germany had 11 mega rounds last year, and that is totally unreal. There's lots of money, but the question is of the competition for the serious companies. And also it's interesting to consider Ukraine, because when we began as IDC in 2010, we had 200 startups, and we were thinking where we should invest into. We could not find the Western investors were coming here from the US funds, top 10 of US funds, top 10 of European funds, and it was hard to find something. Everything was in the very prenatal status, and we've got lots of expectations. Today the situation is changing. If I'm not mistaken, 43 Ukrainian companies have created and raised serious rounds, and even the ones who had a very complicated situations, they used COVID as a booster, like Zakaz UA and other companies. It's interesting to look at the Ukrainian founders, at the so-called Ukrainian mafia, that is We have the mafia of scat and other types of mafia in different Ukrainian and Eastern European and American territories. We've got our own Ukrainian mafia, so Ukrainian funds, there are 5 new ones, again emerging, and smaller ones, and it is cool. Because in the Q5, they want 100 million. For the 2 years of the investment period. It's interesting. Ukraine is becoming interesting. We are considering Ukrainian founders abroad. So why is it more interesting? Because there are more ideas? Well, because it's high time. It's time. Everything is getting mature. The system cannot exist without the money. There is a certain distribution of these specialties. So Ukraine is the 3rd hub in the world. We are in top 30, top 20, top 50 of different rankings from A to Z, but in development. So now it's high time for the outsourcing to become a product sphere. There are lots of interesting founders emerging who are becoming separate. They begin to do something there, then they form their teams here, and it is becoming a Ukrainian company which should produce certain revenue. There are certain moments how we, as the company, assess the work of the company. Well, when they can raise 570 million and only one Ukrainian founder, this company is not Ukrainian. So, as it's now becoming fashionable, when there is revenue, there you pay the taxes. This is the new topic, because we heard all of the speeches of the economists, and this is the right thing to do. In fact, this is the right thing to do. This will be a huge redistribution, not how it's promised. We'll look how it will take place, how it will happen, but we would like Ukrainian companies to make revenue in Ukraine as well, for them to be more numerous. And Ukraine is an interesting country to allow that. Our population is competitive with lots of other Central European countries. That's why it's becoming interesting. Ukrainian founders are making business in Ukraine, moving to Europe, moving to the world. For instance, out of our portfolio of 2019, Leaky company, which had a very serious part in Ukraine, is growing in several X times. Now they are in Poland, and it will be 10x times. And then we have 3 new geographies on the map, so there are some companies which can work not here but there. And we are speaking not only about technological companies. The quality is assessed according to different principles, but it's interesting for us. We're looking more and more at Ukraine. We're looking at Ukraine as an opportunity to create this bridge, as TA Ventures, Transatlantic Ventures, creating bridges between Europe and the US. That's our trend of work. We have more than 20,000 contacts in that, and if I'm not mistaken, 1,670 of our co-investors of our 145 companies which we investors. This is the warm network which earned with us who are ready to invest into Ukrainian companies. Which directions, which spheres are ready? Technology, high-tech, but still. What other trends and spheres are emerging or appearing where the Ukrainians can boast nice outcomes as the ideas and new technologies? Well, Ukraine can boast with its technologies, because we were dealing with the developments and we focused on the technologies first of all. There are new spheres emerging where we can tap into the game. This is e-commerce and marketplaces and vertical marketplaces like Leaky, connected with pharmaceuticals, with D2C brands and e-commerce, lots of interesting things. Delivery and logistics, which is a nice topic as well. We're looking at the trillion-dollar opportunities, because we always invested into the spheres which were a trillions market, like digital highways, which were interesting. It's a top for us. The last 6 IPO was done in this sphere out of our portfolio. Then everything which is connected with mobility, with logistics. This is the topic which is huge. It's trillion-dollar opportunity as well. The enterprise tech soft, it's always an interesting and a huge opportunity, and we are investing there as well. And everything which is connected with the consumers. Those are the spheres where Ukraine can part a significant part, because let's not forget, our market is so big, we shouldn't be shy. We've got talents, we've got hubs, Google came to us, BlaBlaCar came to us. They created Reddit here, and several other interesting top names created the R&D centers, and Apple opened and Spotify opened. Lots of interesting facts. Ukraine is becoming more and more interesting, and the opportunities are enormous. If we try to connect Ukrainian expats in this network, our Ukrainian founders who've done something abroad, and they're very numerous, and we don't know about lots of them, just to create their own community, yes, diaspora, which will help them find the money, open the opportunities, provide the mentors, just to write emails, intro emails. That would be more than enough. It is working, and it would be nice to be done at the level of joint forces with the players of the local market. It would really help us. That is why we have some room for improvement. Those spheres are considered as well. Ukraine can move in those spheres as well, and it's important not to forget that we have a huge potential even within one country of Ukraine. But as for innovators, do they prefer to create an innovation and to stay here, or they move to other countries then? And if they move to another country without coming back to Ukraine, then that's the US or any other geographical direction. Now it is the issue which is not that working thanks to COVID. It's not that working because I'm judging our companies, our top funds, which still in 2019 it was no way for the whole team to be located here. They were afraid of being conscripted to the army and so on. But now it was a miracle last year. They just don't want us to go with the badges and to sit in their offices. They want us to stay home. Not only us, but the developers who are now located in the Eastern Europe, not only here. Yes, this situation even helped us. It became a booster because they are coming here. They are bringing their own people here. And if we look at how we create dinners with our iClub, with CTOs, CPOs, bigger people who are coming here. They begin to tour here regularly. It is working. This situation helped us. They're coming here, and this is nice. This process has been launched not only here, but at the global level, and redistribution of technologies. So the perspective is really nice. Nobody is leaving, but of course there are some issues. There are certain details. If you need to leave, to study, to stay there for some time, because it's the new reality today. But still we have all the opportunity to drag back this management for a long period and maybe even forever to form the new technological reality. They are coming to us, not we are moving there. So there are lots of interesting positive movements and pushes within the outsourcing companies. This is a kind of a national moment, which is a proper movement forward. I totally support it. When lots of our acquaintances know the condition, the teams for not to be leaving, they're searching for talents, but one of the conditions for the team to stay here. And this is a nice trend. If we support this trend, then we will make them. Yes, we will make them come here often, even more often, and then we can dictate our own conditions. If we are in the top 3 of the best hubs, we should make a statement. So we are in top 3 of the best hubs, right? Yes, totally. We will. No, we are. And women innovators, because you are investing your resources in the development of this circle of female innovators. How are they compared? We have more than 3.5 thousand. This is a serious circle of innovators in VTech, because VTech is the organization which unites women in technologies, innovations, and business, any business connected with digitalization. So we have the chapters in London, in Berlin. Because of COVID, it's not that active, but we will open other hubs in New York, in Dubai, where our women entrepreneurs are looking at to develop their businesses. Since this year, we are beginning the pitching day, where we invite all of our today's panelists and the members of our club, and they are more than 200 in different locations. iClub Global is the private angel investors club who will be present at the pitching day, and we will show at least 10 projects where one woman at least is the founder. We will do it twice a year, and it's it's very interesting. There is such a topic that is friend zone. The company which wants to show itself on the topic of women empowerment, that is to have access to the talents, and there are more than 3,000, as I mentioned. So there are lots of interesting programs, and we will definitely support this topic. So Anna, if you have some interesting startups where there is at least one woman as a founder, please welcome. Oh, I need to organize my own startup. We'll do it in autumn. So the proportion, the ratio, is it the same in venture financing? 1 to 10. Only 1 is working out of 10, right? Or not? Well, this is a very nice proportion. This is a very nice ratio, which can be done in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. You're very optimistic. Yes, we have it. We lost 10% of companies throughout the whole history. But this is not a very usual figure, because mostly it's 90 to 10. But this situation is being adjusted as well. Well, 1 is winning out of 10, right? Well, this is a high proportion, this is a nice proportion, but the standard is when 1 out of 100 is winning. 1 or 2, that's whom we should put stakes at. And 90% of the companies, unfortunately, are not showing themselves either zombie or anything like that. But still it is changing gradually. Europe is more sticky to the money, but Ukraine doesn't have venture money. If you took the money, give it back. So it is still working here, even in the modern startups. Europe has a different proportion. 20 to 30% of the companies are lost. So it's okay. But in the US, it's lower, but still the situation is changing, fortunately. As far as I understand, the quintessence is, the conclusion is, the money is available. We need to create nice startups now to cooperate, right? Well, yes, the ideas can cost $1, but the implementation of an idea can cost $1 million. So if you need an idea, you can come to our website. We have lots of ideas which we are ready to fund to. If you find doers, that is implementers. Oh, it's our format. I can do that. I need to analyze it. In the UK, in the US, in Europe, we would like to create logistic projects where you need to do something manually, because there is the territory where we can still do a lot, because we know how to do that. That is a cool appeal. If you're at home and have a free minute, let's analyze the ideas which are available, and maybe we will become nice doers and will claim for money, and we'll have trillions. Yes, it's a dream. Give us the doers, true.
Just asking Khaled, you're representing Raiffeisen Bank Aval, and you have now new names, of course, which are pretty simple, but nevertheless Raiffeisen Bank is very active in innovation now, currently, because we all understand that without innovations we cannot survive and be successful. So what is innovation from your point of view, and especially in banking sector? Do you see that the banking sector, because of COVID, is getting more innovative?
Yeah, I'll take a few points from the previous speaker. And we do believe, and even our owner believe, that Ukraine is entering a very, very interesting time. And what is innovation for us? Innovation for us is basically to understand more our customers and to be able to service those needs faster and to a higher quality. So sometimes there's a lot of noise, and the technologies are coming to the mix, and there's so many of those coming. But the basic truth is that in the end, innovation is to help humans service better other humans. So, and to remove that noise from the system. So that's for us. We believe in Ukraine. We are strengthening our team, and it's very much about bringing the right people, and it's very much about protecting those people which are brave, and it's very much about understanding more the ecosystem, which is very fast growing. And we banks are one of those elements of an ecosystem to keep those companies here. I did many interviews in this, I would say, year which I'm here. And there is a need of many people, and when I talk to them, I say, guys, do you want to build very cool products for all the world? And that's fine, but would you consider to build those products for your mother, father, friends, and say to them in the coffee shop, I build this? And surprisingly, that speaks to a lot of people. To answer your question, what's innovation for us? For me, it's basically getting back to the basics, breaking a lot of borders which were artificially built in companies, getting brave people and capable people, which Ukraine offers a lot of those, protect them and give them money, as you say, but from inside a company to articulate those ideas and those opinions fast into the market. So in the system, banks can help the ecosystem grow. Financing, helping connect startups, providing APIs. So to use banking as a platform to build more interesting products on top. So it's all of that. I cannot say technology or I cannot say process, but it's all of that. So it's everything combined.
But with your coming to Raiffeisen Bank Aval, the online systems of Raiffeisen Bank has changed completely. They have been upgraded substantially. And do you feel some sort of challenges when you're making that? Or it is purely connected to financial support, which is needed in order to upgrade the information systems of banking?
Yeah, I'll start by saying there is one reason why many projects fail and why many corporates, which have a lot of money, fail in digital transformation. I remember one, for example, SAP and Lidl, they wrote off 500 million euros of investment. So it is about money, but it's not the most important factor of a transformation. I think it's very much about culture. It's very much about mindset. And I fully agree with what the previous speaker said. It's very much about when we come in a room, for example, I'm an IT person, I'm a business person, I'm a risk person. Actually, we are human beings. So if you remove the labels and you see in my team, a lot of people are successful in their lives. I have a colleague in my team which he is winning many competitions in rising dogs, even worldwide. And every person is a customer, is a developer, is a technical, is a business guy, is a father, it's many things. But when we go to a room, we start becoming just a developer. So we want to remind our people culturally that you are you first. And when you are in a team, you focus to your customer, you can be brave, you can make your hypothesis, and you want to deliver that value faster. Of course, we want to lower the cost of failure, and this is very important to innovation. So if failure costs you a leg and an arm, of course you'll be scared. But if you can do fast iterations, if you can test hypotheses fast, and that comes, and here I love what technology is doing to the ecosystem. So democratization of tools, open source, modern technologies, they are creating or they are lowering the cost of a failure. They're allowing us to articulate ideas to a lower cost, to create feedback loops faster on, to get the customers inside the change process. So we were more of a closed bank, but in the last 2 years, this bank started to open. Are we there? Far from. We are completely in the process. Did we upgrade everything we want? No. But we are getting marginally better. We hope that our customers start to see it, so that they probably don't see it today. But gradually we want to by strengthening our team, by being relentless, by competing with ourselves, which is super important, not with everybody else around us, to create an environment that this bank can help as well, this ecosystem in Ukraine, to grow. We are an international bank. We stand for some values. We stand for ethical banking. We now want as well to stand for fast and modern.
I'm your customer, so that's why I know that that you are changing. I feel that. Of course, I know that the sky is the limit, and yes, we need to go through the line yet. But nevertheless, I see the change, which is very good. When it comes to the mentality of innovation, because Dmitro said that probably you need to be, in this mode of innovation every second and every minute. Do you see the change, or do you see the comparison between different countries? Because you have been living in different ones, even inside the Raiffeisen Bank Group. Where do you see the most of innovation in the eyes, in the heads of people?
Yeah, you'll be surprised how similar we are in different countries, because the basic needs are the same. But having said that, there are some nuances of this market which are very, very interesting. For example, if you'd go to Romania, or if you'd go to Vienna, or if you go to Germany, or wherever you go, you would see a market which is settled. So if you are number 5 in the market, then you are number 5 in the market. Either you buy another company, and it's extremely difficult to unsettle a settled system. Ukraine is still not settled. So here, the pace of change, here the ambition of teams is far bigger, because the game is still open. Yeah, and that makes it very interesting. On the other side, I'm working with people here that my colleagues in Vienna cannot hire those in Vienna, regardless how much they pay. And you know what? Because people in Ukraine started to work earlier, and they were a part of complex projects. Having said that, so all the components here are very interesting, and the game is still open, which the emergency of change and innovation is bigger. Yeah, that's what I see and what I feel. And talking to many people and talking and doing a lot of interviews, we have to fight in banking with our reputation as a place Thailand didn't consider to join. We have to keep more of these product companies here to reinvest those benefits and to grow the ecosystem. But apart from that, I'm an optimistic by nature, so I like the environment around me. Yeah. I like the environment.
Thank you. It seems to be it's very optimistic news about Ukraine. You know, you become to love more and more our country, even despite the weak rule of law and the law enforcement institutions. It seems to me we are very innovative.
Let me add one small thing here, not on the so positive side. So, for me, talent and potential is not everything. It's necessary, but for the innovation to get roots, you need a system, and system is financial system, legal system. You need to protect that innovation, because I remember this story about Venice many hundred years ago, that they were the hub of innovation of the world, and it took one law, the big closing, which forbid young people to do new ventures, which took Venice in 20 years to become a museum. So you cannot have only the ingredients, because ingredients are like prime materials. The ingredients in Ukraine, our startup ecosystem here works for US, for Germany, so that talent doesn't get roots as much as it should here. It started, it's growing, it's super interesting to see, but the system has to be complete. And the banks are part of the financial system, which we can help oil this circulation of value. So it's not all bright. I'm not saying that it's always bright and it's a pink place and it will be like a walk in the park. It will be still very difficult, but it's interesting. So it's getting
It's
hotter.
exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Khalid. Кто еще?
Who are the top two hubs? China? China? Okay. Well, that is cool. If we are coming after China, well, somehow we can see that we always thought that the technological processes are ongoing in the US, but we cannot imagine the level of technological advancement of China. We just don't imagine it. Well, they are super organized, right? Well, first of all, they're super organized. Secondly, the Chinese have the infrastructure, and they are 2 billion of people. Yes, this is the rival of United States globally, and the United States accept that. But if we are the third after America and China, it's really so cool. We need to take this position and to improve it. Well, in Israel, there are more than 20,000 Ukrainian talents, so we will have our common glory with them, right? Yes, because we are very generous. Now, Mikhailo Chabanyan should join our conversation. He's the founder of Kuna family and the president of Blockchain Association in Ukraine. Well, you know, blockchain is some terra incognita for us to some extent, but lots of people consider it to be a very fashionable trend. So looking at the ratings as for the blockchain, you're now having records. How is it happening? Because this is not the real currency, but still it is achieving new records. How do you look at the innovations in this sphere? Because we understand that there are lots of cryptocurrencies, and we understand that the future will be for that. Why do you think so, if you think so? Hello? Yes, really. Now it's a hot topic. Recently, I'm getting lots of calls from everybody. Everybody remembers about me now. While Bitcoin had the cost of 10,000, they were not interested in that. But now it has the price of 60,000. Everybody is remembering about me and buying cryptocurrency. Have you bought any cryptocurrency? Long ago. So, as for the innovations, what is taking place now? Yesterday, there was a very substantial piece of news. The biggest American cryptocurrency stock market exited to the IPO, and now its evaluation is $100 billion. which makes it the most expensive stock markets out of all of the stocks markets in the world. The second place and the third place is taken by the Chinese and the US stock markets, but number one is the cryptocurrency innovation stock market. As for the global development, to this or that extent, we are in the financial market. Fintech, finances, yes, we are a bit different from the traditional money, but in any case, what I can see is happening now in the development of the cryptocurrency market is an attempt to repeat the traditional tools which we have now, to iterate the traditional money, credits, loans, deposits, futures, forwards, but without the participants of the centralized agents. So all of those attempts of so-called DeFi projects is decentralized issue and launch of the markets, not to have a unified centralized point of failure. This is the hot topic. The second hot topic is NFT, digitalization of all of the rights, pictures, digital objects. You can just imagine, yes, Twitter messages, yes. This is digitalization of everything which we have now. This was the future. I cannot tell that it will look how it is now, but still, we'll definitely see that the documents for the vehicles will be digital, not paperback, which you need to show to the policeman. So all of those points should be digitalized. As for the currency rate, well, I shouldn't speculate, nobody knows. I can only comment the following. The price of 60,000 plus of dollars for one Bitcoin, it's not what Bitcoin deserves. This is what the government of the US did, because they doubled the money bulk. It used to be 3.5 trillion, now it's 6 trillion. It's not the growth of Bitcoin, this is the decrease of dollar. But dollar is a reserve world currency, and this lag of inflation is very slow. It is coming here very slowly, and we are not feeling it, because this new liquidity went to the shares of Tesla, cryptocurrencies, Google, Amazon, all of those trillion companies which we can see. Some of them were disseminating all over the world, but I agree with all of the speakers that the money is just enormous now. They are much more than the projects. So some inflation will happen sooner or later. So far, it is not taking place because we cannot acknowledge that dollar costs 2 times less. So hryvnia costs 2 times less as well. I just had the meeting, and Paul totally approved now that at Bloomberg it has 2%, and we are happy with those 2%. And now the boom. Why do we have this boom in crypto industry? A huge number of free finances and funds of cryptocurrencies. It never used to cost anything in 2010, or maybe some cryptocurrencies did not exist. Except Bitcoin, and now it has the price of 60,000. So now, in the fiat equivalent, there are lots of free money which are now in our smartphones or wallets of the usual citizens who are not professional investors, bankers, venture funds. Those are just human people, as the banker colleague said, some usual citizen, some father, mother, and others. And they have totally at the distance of a fingertip or Face ID, they have crazy millions of dollars and euros. This is the money mass, and they invest into everything. So on the one hand, we've got easy, non-professional investors with crazy money, which they took from nowhere. On the other hand, we have startups who have the same crazy ideas, and they are launching and issuing their tokens and selling to the so-called investors. Though it's not my words, I don't like those terms. So, because this boiler is boiling, we have this melting pot boiling, there's lots of frauds there, lots of people are losing money, but something is working and functioning, and it is working better than the rockets of Elon Musk. But still, the regulation could keep the growth of this movement or not. Or it is necessary, the state regulation I mean. Oh, this is the nice question. Well, it depends on what you consider, because if we speak about the usual citizens, the regulation is an evil. But if we speak about business, the business cannot deal without the state regulations in the modern world, because those are the rules of the game. There is the state which writes down those rules of the game, and international organizations, closed organizations, they have defined those are the rules of the game. And be so kind, if you would like to get to our club, you need to stick to those requirements. The regulation is there, it will be imposed, but as techno-anarchist, crypto-anarchist are much quicker than any regulator, we can see that cryptocurrency is catching up any attempts of the states to regulate anything, to make it oppressed. But in any case, my expectation is, as far as you know, Federal Reserve System creates its own digital dollar. The Chinese are creating the digital yuan. They have tested it, and I think that this year we will see its massive use. They have kept Alibaba and WeChat Pay for them not to launch their own coins. They stopped Facebook from Libra. They stopped Telegram. All of that was not done in vain, because they have their own plans of national cryptocurrencies from the central bank. We can see, in fact, the tests with the invisible hand of the Americans, what is USDC, and which is issued by Coinbase, which yesterday was exited the IPOs, and the English startup circle take part in that. They don't even conceal that they're using that token to fund Venezuela opposition. Just recently, this token will be used within Visa system for the transfers between the balances. So this is the attempt, this is just a try from the US how to use this token further on. That's why we have the question, what will happen with decentralized cryptocurrencies which are not under control of any state? And here there could be lots of scenarios. I'm sure that we will see several black swans, some unexpected things. But I'm optimistic. Bitcoin will never vanish because it is allocated by millions of dollars by bigger funds. But all the other smaller cryptocurrencies, there can be some details. Does it seem to you that cryptocurrencies, as well as the traditional currencies, can they be used to avoid taxation, to get corrupt profits and revenues? Definitely it is happening now. But how can we protect ourselves from that if we are law-abiding as a society? Well, just do not steal. Do not be corrupt. But if they want to, if the citizens want to, well, it's not the issue of the money. It's the issue of the user or the thinking of the people and the rules of the game. For instance, why the Switzerland has the lower level of corruption in comparison with us? Because they have a social agreement that they don't do that for the good of everybody. And we have the social agreement that it's okay and nobody is jailed for corruption. This is our social agreement. We need to update this agreement and not to provide any sanctions to restrict anybody, to ban something, because this is the way to nowhere. The criminals are always ahead of any law enforcement. We need to change the mentality. True. But as for the investments into Bitcoin, as far as I understand, you're advising to get there or not? I'm never providing investment advices, but it would be interesting as we have a panel discussion here. Recently, there have been surveys conducted what the professional investors think, traditional investors think about cryptocurrencies. The first option of the answer is, yes, it is the future. Secondly, they don't think anything. Thirdly, they don't know anything about that. And the fourth, all of that is the fraudery, a pyramid, a bubble which will burst. So it would be interesting to know. You think it's the future, right? I will answer, I'm sharing the opinion of Paul, because he totally commented on the Federal Reserve System, and they are not going to restrict anything. He managed to mention that a month ago, and they are not planning to do anything. They say, if it exists, let it exist. They have the same nature as the gold does. Bitcoin cannot be the tool to exchange because of one reason. Anna, I will ask you. You bought coffee today for 1 Bitcoin, but tomorrow it has the growth in the price. Do you feel? What will you feel after that? So it cannot be an exchange mean, and it's the gaining or saving. It's a hedging currency. Do I plan to do it? I'm not hedging. It's more interesting for me to work with the stocks, which are providing interesting dynamics because I understand how the company is working. But can it exist? Good luck. The casinos exist. Why not?
Your attitude to cryptocurrency.
First, I do not engage in predicting the future. That's something which I don't do out of a principle. And the second, it's super interesting development as it happens so far. So all the cryptocurrency and the blockchain. On the other side, there's one worry for me is like the cost of those currency in power consumption and what they do to the environment. So that's something which I think has to be addressed or has to be thought over, how to reduce the footprint of that, because gold doesn't pollute and Bitcoin does. So I have mixed feelings, but I am very curious about what comes. So.
Interesting, thank you, Nikolai. Pavlo?
Pavlo? We're not using it in the work, but when we will have to use it, we'll update it, and then we'll have our own attitude. We don't have the attitude now. Okay, interesting. Did you get the answer for your question? Thank you. Thank you, Mikhailo. So let's move on. Pavlo Kartashov, the president and the director of the Ukrainian Startup Fund in Ukraine. So it's interesting to get to know how you see the development of the startups in Ukraine. Do you see a bigger amount of startups which are emerging? How COVID impacted the situation with the startups? As far as I understand, the funding is stable, but still the question is about the ideas. Thank you, Anna, for the question. It's very interesting. So as of today, we are conducting activities stably. The number of the projects decreased, but in spite of that, we have lots of initiatives, and thanks to that, our plan is increasing. We are providing partnership programs, acceleration programs, and also we expanding other opportunities for the startups, for them to be more involved in our activities. And as of today, the fund, in a year and a half of our activities, we have become the biggest angel investor in Ukraine, funding lots of startups. We have the permanent drive. We have a very powerful supervisory board, which gives us a very full speed of activities and provides ambitious aims. So we are not standing at the same place. So we are working with the startups, but maybe we will be able to deal with the innovations, to work with the R&Ds at the partnership conditions and so on. And we are hoping that one day our platform will become a so-called marketplace. Because we're totally communicating with different international funds. Last week, it used to be a Danish fund of innovations, and we had a very interesting discussion with them. So we do hope that soon we will launch active cooperation. And we've got numerous partners like that. The number of them increases every day. We are not at the same place. As for the startups, it's obvious that the number is increasing. There are lots of ideas, but now we are funding startups at the beginning stages, which is not about funding, but about the opportunities which are provided by the fund. This is the mentorship support and PR for the startups. So as for today, I would say the expertise which is provided by the fund is a so-called quality sign. After our expertise and the pitching of the startups. Lots of them, in 2 or 3 weeks, get funding from the investors. Cool. This is a huge movement forward. And we would like to provide as many opportunities as possible, not only the state money, but any other support. But if we speak about the startups which appeared last year, which are the brightest? Which used to be the most impressive for you? Well, you know, all of them are very diverse. I cannot comment which of them, 1 or 2, can be the brightest. It's not reasonable to comment. But still, there are lots of ideas which seem to be very perspective. And there are some startups which, after they get the decision of the supervisory board, they decided to refuse because they got funding from the investors as $500,000 and so on. Well, it's weird because money cannot be excessive, right? Well, we are not speaking about the money, but the funds of the startup which can invest, because the money is enough, including our fund, to fund more startups. As of today, we are funding, according to the statistical data, every 25th startup. We'd like to achieve more. But the requirements are high, and we consider it to be... Where do you search for those startups? We have that open call. It's like funding in the bank. If you need money, you're coming, you're applying and getting. So the call is always open, as well as the experts. What's our peculiarity? The startups are assessed by the experts who are the representatives of the market, and the model of the fund is a very interesting combination of the model of cooperation between the state and the business, because the main organizational activity is provided by the supervisory board, which defines the policies and so on, and mostly it is represented by the business representatives. The participants of the state is minimal. Got it. Dear friends, we've got the question at YouTube profile. What's the attitude of our speakers to the open innovations approach and its implementation in Ukraine? Open innovations. Could you clarify what that is? What open innovations is? Well, I don't understand as well. If we're speaking about open source, let it be open source. Because there is the story of GitHub and other bigger stories, and which have lots of opportunities. There are examples of cooperation in the open API, and those are bigger projects which concern the use of artificial intelligence to process data, to look at the company which was acquired by Microsoft, by the way, in the healthcare sphere. So this is the processing of the voice communications between the doctor and the patient. They transform that into the text info, and then this algorithm predicts. And as an outcome, it will allow they use OpenAPI. So the question of openness and proprietary have always been relevant. And something will always be open and something will be proprietary. I'd like to come back to the question which was raised by my colleague, that is the protection of IP in Ukraine and viable startups. What Darnitzer Group is considering about when we invest into the startups, it's important for us to see the viable startup, the startup which knows how it works at the market, how the technology looks like, and how he will be moving on. It will be moving on. It doesn't matter. And the majority of venture capitalists do not see the Ukrainian market or the European market. They can see global markets. The bigger market is, the more interesting it is. But it's important for it to be a predictive model, for it to be economic model. So they invest into the teams. It's important. Victoria will agree with me, because they invest into the CEOs who have certain vision. Something like that. Thank you. If there are no questions, then I will gradually finalize the meeting. But still, I would like to ask you about the innovations which you would expect this year to emerge and to be implemented? Metro has mentioned about that a bit, which are now developed as innovations, but still, 3 innovations which you think will be reality this year.
Which will be, but I can hope about one in particular. Made me very happy to read one trend. Last year, 2020, the subscription in arts and liberal arts increased. So it was a year when arts made a comeback. So we have a lot of talk about, I don't know, end of the world scenarios, when cyborgs and robots and spaceships. But I hope that we make humanity trend again. So it's kind, you said, go out, have a coffee, have a walk. Not with VR, but touch things, which we kind of couldn't do because of COVID. So COVID accelerated many digital trends, many of those, like workplace changed, family changed, school changed. But I hope the other counter trend to be humanity to make a comeback. So arts, getting back to basics.
Хтось думає?
Do you agree? Well, you know, we would like to find some technology which would understand COVID remotely, right? Yes, for us to come back to the normal life. I think that we will see movies with the participants of AI without any actors, as much as we saw Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, like fake TikTok account with Tom Cruise. It's just science fiction. I watched this video 5,000 times and I couldn't understand that this was fake Tom Cruise, not real one. And when we speak about the experiments, well, I made an experiment on my relatives. Maybe I shouldn't. But still, I brought the pictures of my grandparents and created some animations and videos with my grandparents. This was not very well, those who died, yes. Well, some of my relatives were smiling, some of my relatives were crying and depressed. What did you do? There is a special website. You're sending the picture there, usual black and white picture, and it makes it alive. You can see mimics, the head is moving, so it's a kind of a live picture, a very interesting story. Big data, well, of course it is here already. So far it's not accessible to the smaller enterprises. It's only accessible to the bigger, richer companies, and the experts are not that numerous. And artificial intelligence and big data are the main things, and world management, everything which is connected with the digital world management, the latest data. People are having online for 7 hours a day. I even look at myself and I need to organize detoxification during the weekend because I'm trying not to touch my cell phone on Sunday, but unfortunately it doesn't work on Saturdays. It's totally impossible during the weekend because the whole business is here. You don't need the office. You need to communicate with the people and to appoint the tasks. You need to sign the transactions. This is the business. Well, this is the future, yes. Well, I think that the biotech will be important. Biotech, that is the opportunity to overcome serious crisis in the healthcare sector as soon as possible. I agree with Mitro. From 2 days to 2 weeks for it to be enough. Yes, in a weekend. Yes, you can listen to the podcasts. Just watch them. In 2 days or 2 weeks, you can do that according to different sources and estimates to provide that. There are lots of details, but we have some room for improvement, so we'd like to overcome such things as soon as possible, to have the proper breakthrough in the healthcare, and for lots of diseases to go to the past, to forget about them. As the topic of the healthcare, of course, the mental health. What we see in our relatives and acquaintances, at least 1/3 of people around us need support. We don't have the solution so far, either online or offline. We need to be very cautious and attentive to our relatives. Especially the post-COVID response is very problematic, so be very attentive to your relatives. And the third point, a huge disruption in the education from the kindergarten, when the child is born, and then the grown-up. This would be the full rethinking of the process. Thanks to COVID, we had the boost in the understanding. that each of us has the request not only for personalized medicines, which is also a huge trend, of course, in what I mentioned, biotech, pharma, and so on, but also a huge request from the personalization of our learning arrow, from our being born to our continuation of the lifetime. So those are 2 points which will totally make us different. And I totally agree with what was mentioned by other speakers. Dmitro? Well, I will try to mention several spheres, at least the spheres where we have some skills as Ukraine. We'll begin with cybersecurity. I think that this year we will see and hear lots of interesting stories about ransomware and the consequences as the biggest threat. The bigger manufacturers are stopping. They don't like to speak about that, but the industry knows. We will see very powerful stories and the development of the startups around the protection from ransomware, especially cloud infrastructure. This is the huge story. And if we speak about the evaluation of those companies in the US, this is 1 billion, 5 billion, and so on. If we speak about fintech, here I hope that Ukraine will have one more neobank or several neobanks, because we have the lack of them. We have only one. Unfortunately, the speaker didn't use the microphone. So the question will be about the efficiency. This is the huge challenge for the whole banking structure, because neo-banking is a very huge trend. And here we can see digital currency and everything which concerns digital currency, the new digital services. And we can see new players who are not banking players, but who are playing banking. Especially the fact that we can see huge sums of money which you can use for interesting things. I think that Ukraine should have its own Robin Hood or something like Robin Hood, or some intelligent broker. This is a fintech topic. Then a favorite topic of healthcare, lots of points here. First of all, is the more disseminated approach to the use of RNA as mRNA, as a research, the creation of the medicine, not only vaccines, but medicines. I will remind you that Moderna was created in 2010 as an R&D lab on medicine. It was not created for inoculation. They didn't have vaccines in the pipeline. Though now their pipeline, their modality is very high, very powerful, and it is reflected in the market and in the tech. Well, I shouldn't say Pfizer, because RNA is BioNTech, the German company. And also, this is the huge dynamics, and the new products will emerge. We need to understand that, because we all want COVID to finalize, but after COVID-19, there will be the next thing coming, and the next thing will be coming. I do understand that we'd like to pretend it's not coming, but it will. And we could see that in the speed of the pharmaceutical industry, it will be a huge challenge. By the way, did you notice that the representatives of the Microsoft are mostly foreseeing that there will be some epidemics, right? The former ones, the current ones, well, because they were nice biology students at school. And the RNA issue, I do hope that personalized healthcare will become reality, including Ukraine. And there are lots of in silico indigeseuticals which I would like to see. The first digeseuticals, which will be certified in Ukraine, not only by FDA but EMA. But if we speak what I would like to see, and maybe even this year, I would like to see landing on the Mars of any human. I'm waiting for the Mars mission, because it's really a huge breakthrough for the humanity, not only for exploring, not only by a drone, but really a human being who is landing on Mars. And it would be a huge breakthrough for the humanity in the innovations to colonize planets, because there is high tech there and engineering there. It's really, really a big breakthrough. Wow. So on this positive note about such bigger and huge innovations, I need to finalize our discussion. I do hope that really in a year, when we have another one more Innovation Day, we can conclude and we can see what was achieved out of what you listed today. So I sincerely thank you for such interesting thoughts and opinions and insights. I do hope that our viewers were interested as well to listen to you. I was interested, so I do wish you strong health, first of all, you and your families. Stay healthy and take care about each other, and innovative, of course. Thank you. See you. Goodbye.